Well, hi, everybody. This is Catherine Boyle from Key Ministry. Thank you so much for joining our monthly disability ministry video roundtable discussion. And so this year we have done something a little new, and I appreciate all of you for joining in. We have done a quarterly emphasis on mental health ministry in our DMVRs. And so today our topic is mental health ministry versus disability ministry. How are they alike? And how are they different? So feel free to ask questions, to share your own information, particularly if your church, has done disability ministry, mental health ministry, or both. We're here to learn from one another what is working and what is supporting people's needs. So I am going to do a short presentation to just kind of get the conversation started, but absolutely. If you have a comment or a question, just raise your hand, or we've got the chat. I am solo today, so it might take me a minute before I can get to you. But definitely appreciate everybody, being on. So let me see if I can get the share thing going here. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Okay, wonderful. All right, so this is what we're talking about today, disability ministry versus mental health ministry, how they are alike, how they're different. So yeah, I like to, have a direction that we're focused in our conversations. So, today the objective is to really answer these two questions, how are they alike? How are they different? And then, what should ministry and discipleship type supports look like when a person has mental health challenges? So I know some of you on this particular DMVR, I know you've been in mental health and or disability ministry for a long time. So some of you absolutely know that there are overlaps between these two worlds. But there's also differences. And so what can be really helpful is that if, the better we can define things, the better we can use words to understand a particular challenge, then that can help us with our approach and to find a solution. So our words can definitely drive our actions in a helpful and meaningful way. So, all right, so 4 ways that mental health issues and disabilities can be alike. So they may be physical. It is obvious that a person who has to use a wheelchair for mobility may have some sort of physical challenge. But a person, for example, who has schizophrenia, that's a brain-based disease. And with brain scans, you can absolutely see that there are differences in a person's brain who has schizophrenia versus a person who does not. So with the physical disability often comes visibility. And it may be visible through, I can see you, or it may be that, through testing, like I just mentioned with schizophrenia. Disabilities may impact a person's ability to have community, just whether it is a mobility kind of issue or their health is just too fragile to be able to leave home. Or sometimes there can be, it impacts on community, whether it's what I just described or like communication type issues. And then with physical disabilities or with mental health challenges, you may have issues with your identity and purpose. Who did God create me to be? What is the mission that God has for me here? So any questions, comments? All right, so there are definitely some differences between what we think of, or what I think of as traditional disabilities and mental health challenges, in that they may not be visible at all, except mental health challenges will be revealed perhaps in behaviors or speech. they may not impact the ability to have community. Some of the things that Steve Gersovich, our president and founder, has talked about is that sometimes people have really significant challenges in certain situations. Example, social anxiety. They might really have a hard time with that, with certain groups of people, whereas in other groups, that may not be an issue. Symptoms for mental health issues are often hidden or hideable. People can go to work and smile and yet also be very depressed and even, have more significant mental health challenges. I think it's just really the nature of just the way that the brain works and the way that God wired us is that a lot of times you just have these spiritual questions, and that there is some shame that often comes along just with having mental health challenges. Part of that, I believe, is because we don't often, until recent decades, we have not been great at identifying, exactly what that is and what the reasons are. Again, issues with identity and purpose. Mental health issues are notoriously difficult to diagnose because you can't just take a blood test and figure out what's going on. There may be physical components that underlie a mental health issue, but it may take a very, very long time to help a person get the help that they actually need. And then perhaps the hardest one of all is that it can be very difficult to tell, is this something a person can't do or something a person won't do? And so that can be very challenging, whether you're talking as a parent, or as an individual who has a mental health challenge, or, as a ministry leader who, we talk a lot about children in the ministry that we do, but, it's really hard to tease out, can that child actually, sit quietly with the rest of the group, or do they actually need to be up and moving around to be able to function well in our environment? So, all right. And I just want to encourage you and I think, for anybody who's a ministry leader, this ought to be just kind of a no-brainer, but, whatever kind of challenge a person has, that person is a person to love, not a problem to solve. It is really easy, particularly when you're frustrated, to look at people as problems. And, that is not going to lead you to a path of a place of being able to come alongside someone and help them in their discipleship and relationship with Christ. And discipleship is possible for any person, if they wish to follow Christ. We are blessed in the time in which we live. I mean, look at how we're having this conversation today. There are tools that are available, like, meeting this way, and plus many tools that Key Ministry offers, that many of you in ministry offer in your own respective ministries and spheres of influences. Many of those things never existed 15 years ago. So, there are so many options to helping come alongside people, no matter what their challenge is, so that they can grow. They can learn who Jesus is and come alongside them to help them learn to grow in that relationship with Christ. So, again, not a monologue. Anybody have any comments or questions? Okay. So this is really pretty basic stuff, whatever we're talking about. One of the things that Sandra Peoples has said that I think just sums all of this up so well is that if a person has visible issues or visible challenges, then the supports are likely going to be visible. But if a person has challenges that are, not visible to the eye, then those supports likewise should not be visible to the eye. So as you're thinking through, all right, often our conversations with ministry leaders start with, there's this kid, And, we really want to support this child in our environment, but it is just challenging. So with any kind of challenge, you want to identify exactly what is the issue. So, figure out what is the need, why is that child not able to thrive in my environment? And if the child, or an adult, a teen, what is the issue? How can we come alongside that person so that, they can participate in our ministry and grow in their discipleship and relationship with Jesus? So, these are very basic steps, but they definitely apply in this kind of scenario. So you want to define, the issue, what is the need? So what's the goal going to be? Does the person need community? Is it somebody who is struggling to find friendship just because of whatever their challenge is? Are they struggling with depression and so they're not leaving home? And therefore they're having a difficult time maintaining friendships or finding Christian friends. Well, then, let's figure out, what can be the goal here? Is it going to be to have a Zoom meeting like this with the person until the person, is willing to have a new friend come over to the home? How are you going to define success in that particular scenario? A lot of the things that we do in ministry tend to be very focused on head count and, how many people are going to participate. But I would encourage you to think about mental health ministry kind of overall as more oriented around lost sheep kind of ministry. It's not going to be necessarily ministry for the masses. It might just be transformation for that one person so that they see that Jesus is real and he's active in their life and that he created them for an incredible purpose. So in that regard, mental health ministry is a much more discipleship oriented approach. So scalability may not mean ministry to thousands, but perhaps impactful ministry to that one or those two people that are in your midst that you're having a hard time reaching and connecting with. Any comments? You can always drop a comment in the chat. It might take me a minute to get there because I'm not sure I can see it with the chat with the presentation right now. But definitely let me know if raise your hand. I'm jumping around looking. So if anybody has a comment or question. Okay, so we tend to want to put all of our ministry things on our website, and that is great. But, I would encourage you, this is probably not going to look like what you have on your website for your disability ministry. This is not going to be a wing in your building or a new wing in your building. This is going to be perhaps a much shorter list of things, but no less impactful than what you have for other areas of ministry within your church. So you may have something like, well, let me back up. Your link should reflect what is offered in your church. So that might be that you are offering mental health support groups that meet periodically. That might mean that you are, oh, sorry, hold on. That you have a counselor who's on site, or that you have links to local counselors who, you have vetted and that, are known to your ministry leaders, to your church leaders. And that's somebody that you would really feel confident sharing with individuals who are coming to your church seeking some kind of assistance. Absolutely. If you have somebody, whether it's a staff person or a volunteer who is interested in serving as what we call either a mental health champion or a mental health liaison, that can be somebody who could be listed as a contact on your website. I would really strongly encourage that. That can be a person, maybe, okay, let's back up. So maybe you have a pastor who is over disability engagement, disability ministry in your church. Beth, my colleague, her title has actually been something like, director of disability engagement at her church. So she basically makes sure that everybody, all the different siloed ministries within the church are making sure that they are thinking through all of the programming, all of the discipleship initiatives with people with disabilities in mind. Similar kind of approach for that mental health champion. We have a fair amount of resources about that on our website. We have presentations about this role to help you think through how to get this going and what that person will do. So we will definitely link to those presentations on in our show notes and on our YouTube channel. So, some churches are offering wraparound type services where if an individual, has a lot of needs, the church can be very helpful for providing community for the individual and just, helping them set goals and that sort of thing. So if your church is offering that sort of thing, that may be helpful on your website as well. And then if you offer any kind of mental health support training, whether it's to your staff or if it's open to the public, and the kinds of things that come to mind are, a lot of churches are offering things like QPR, which is suicide prevention training to their staff, maybe mental health first aid. A lot of churches are offering trauma-informed kinds of training now too. So especially if any of those are open to the public, that could be a great thing to have on your website. So we do have a few questions in the chat so far. So one of the comments was that we do talk a lot about children, but there are challenges in the teen adult ministries too. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'd be interested in hearing, maybe on this, on this page about the website, like what kinds of things your churches are showing on their website or are doing to be really letting individuals who are teens and adults know that there, is support within the church.
Yeah.
Let's see. And another person said, thank you for making the point that numbers is not what's important, but impactful for each individual. Yeah, I mean, it's very easy and, to really get focused on those numbers, but, we're called to make disciples, not like, just bodies in the building. So a question, how would you define a mental health liaison on or champion on your social media page? So a mental health champion is basically somebody who is either a staff person or a high impact volunteer who can work with kind of across the silos within your church to understand overall like what the needs are within your church itself and also in your local community. Because if you've been in church world very long, a lot of times when people come to the church looking for help, a lot of times those kinds of needs have a mental health component underneath of them. So again, we have several presentations and tools on our website that I can link. I can't get to it right now because I'm solo today, but I can link on, just some of the steps that you can go through in your church to figure out, who might be a good person for that role, whether it should be staff or volunteer, what the time commitment is. It really should be a person who has a passion for supporting individuals who have mental health challenges, and is also a mature believer, has a strong relationship with Christ, and can really be an effective kind of bridge between, maybe, whether you have mental health counselors on, that meet at your church or maybe in your community and the church leaders, and also the individuals who come to your church who have needs, whether that's, people in the church or people outside the church. So there's another question here. Does anyone have a resource list for mental health 101 classes? We did some online ones a few years ago, but those aren't available anymore. I'm tossing that out to the group. I'd love to know what other people are doing. Mental health first aid is kind of the basic one that a lot of churches and community groups use, and also that QPR that I mentioned, the suicide prevention training. Does anybody have anything else that you've used in your community or your church? Okay, we just got a comment that if you're looking for certification, Light University offers a mental health coaching program, and that's lightuniversity.com. So excellent. Thank you so much. Anybody else have anything that they have used in their church that's been a good program, whether for your staff or for open for the community? One thing that I haven't mentioned on this page, but if your church does any kind of programming, whether it's, a Bible study, a sermon series, a small group focused on mental health kinds of needs, that can be a great thing to have on the website as well. There was a church that we, several years ago, we did a webinar with them. I'm going to not remember their name correctly, so I'm not even going to try to say it, but it's a church in Central Florida, and the pastor was doing a Sunday night sermon series like once a month on a mental health related topic. So if you guys are doing anything like that in your churches, that's a great thing to put on a mental health related menu on your website. Anybody else have something like that? Okay, comment in the chat. We use Living Grace by Mental Health Grace Alliance. Yeah, Mental Health Grace Alliance is a fantastic organization. They have wonderful materials. If you follow our work, we have done some collaboration with Fresh Hope for Mental Health. They likewise have really excellent materials. There's also Anchor International. I think it's anchor.org. They were previously known as My Quiet Cave, but they rebranded a couple years ago, and they have excellent support materials for groups that want to meet on mental health topics as well. Thank you for all these resources that you're sharing, and we will link to these in our show notes. Does anybody else have any resources or approaches any sermon series, anything like that you've used in your church that has been impactful in your church or in your community? There's one other thing I'll throw out here. There was a church, and this kind of goes in the topic of sermon series. There's a church not far from Bay Presbyterian Church where my colleague Beth and Dr. Gersovich are members, that did a sermon series on mental health, a mental health topic a few years ago. And several of their staff recorded a short video, individuals that had their own mental health struggles. And, that was very impactful as well. And we have shared their videos in our social media, over the years because they've been really good. So just got a comment, anchor.org is under construction. Maybe it's anchor.com or Anchor International. Somebody else could look it up. That would be great, since I am solo, and I'm afraid that if I touch anything, my presentation's going to go away. Okay, so let's say you're just getting started with mental health ministry. This is a new concept for your church and your ministry team. That is okay. Everybody starts somewhere, right? So, I would just really encourage you that, learn from people who've gone before. There is no need for any of us to reinvent the wheel. So, Key Ministry has done a lot of work in this area, but there's a lot of other organizations now who have likewise done that kind of work, whether it's organizations that we've mentioned, like, Mental Health Grace Alliance, Anchor International, Fresh Hope for Mental Health. There's other organizations that I can think of, one in my area that comes alongside families and helps provide that kind of wraparound care. It's not specifically for mental health needs, but often there's a mental health component. Just do a little, searching around the internet or searching around the Key Ministry website, and, you probably will be able to find some things that are aligned with where God is leading you in this. I would just encourage you also to be devoted to God's word, and then document those answers to prayer, when you're thinking about stepping out into this kind of ministry, or expanding this kind of ministry. God is in the business of answering prayers, and it will really encourage you and your team as you are, stepping in to meet these kinds of needs. So, if you are seeking him in this and he is leading you to do something, he's going to open a door. And it may not be a big door. Again, this is lost sheep kind of territory. It's not necessarily going to be, putting your name up in lights somewhere where you're going to be, get worldwide acclaim or anything like that, or have that viral video that, makes you famous. But, God is very much in those small things. And I would just encourage you, to step out when he opens, that small opportunity to you, because oftentimes that's where you find tremendous blessing for yourself and the person on the other end. And, I would just encourage you to trust him. There's everybody who's in this space, everybody who has been working in the disability space for a long time. All of those people that you see in that space and in the mental health space, everybody started with saying yes to God, to that one little thing. So if you're wondering, where can I find a mentor? Where can I find people to collaborate with? Where can I find answers to my questions? Beyond opportunities like this, we have a forum on Facebook that is free for anyone to join who is, interested in mental health ministry or is actively working. So it's called Mental Health Ministry Leaders. If you go, I think you can find it on the main Key Ministry Facebook page. If not, I will drop the link in the show notes. We'll have our video up on YouTube and Vimeo, tomorrow. So, again, you don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to be in mental health as a professional, like a clinician. But, we hope that this group will be a launching pad for collaborations, because we've seen our disability ministry leaders group become a tremendous forum for collaborations and connections, and really, it's pretty amazing. We'll see a question be posted, and within an hour, there's 10 different approaches, solutions, resources, what have you, that are offered up, no matter, what the challenge is. And it's just created this beautiful community of people who are, the hands and feet of Christ. And so we very much want that to be the same kind of thing for mental health in our mental health ministry leaders group. So I don't know if you guys have heard, but we have this little thing going on next week. It's called Mental Health in the Church. If you can see the screen, you can, hover your phone over the QR code and it'll take you right to the URL. But it is keyministry.org/MHATC 2024. This is our very first mental health conference. If you know our work, we've been doing our Disability in the Church conference in various forms for over a decade now. And so, this year we're doing our very first mental health conference. We are thrilled with the lineup of speakers who have committed to come to this event. We have a great variety of topics. And we just hope that whoever comes, whether you're a presenter or whether you're an attendee, that you'll gain some new tools, you'll gain some new insights, and you'll make some new friendships and collaborate with, and find ways to collaborate with others, because that's really what has been able to build over these last 10 years or so through the Disability in the Church Conference. Because we want all people to personally experience the love of Christ. And, that doesn't matter whether you have a physical or mental health challenge, all people can know the love of Christ. So, just really encourage you, if you can be there, we'd love to see you in person. So just got a comment. I'm so excited to meet Lara Roberts. Yes, Lara Roberts is our new operations director, and she is fabulous. This comment says she's been an autism mom friend on Instagram. I just found out she's going to be able to attend. Yes, she's a key ministry staff person now, and she is wonderful. So there's a question. Is there a way to attend virtually? Yes. Now we'd love for you to be there in person, but we know that's not possible for everybody. So like our Disability in the Church events, we will be live streaming to the Key Ministry YouTube channel. So I'm going to click over to the next page. You can, again, go to the conference page through the QR code. But if you are interested in attending virtually, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's at Key Ministry. We will be live streaming everything that's on the main stage there. If you subscribe, you will get notifications to your email that the main stage events are live. So the conference will begin next Thursday, the 26th at 8:30 a.m. through 5 p.m. Then Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. The main stage events are Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, 1:30 to 3:30, Friday morning, 8:30 to 10, and then we're wrapping up Friday between like 12:15 and 1. And those will all be on the main stage. And then we'll have quick takes in between. So there'll be lots of great content. And we will be recording each of the quick takes, each of the main stage presentations. Eventually they'll make their way to our YouTube and Vimeo channels, but it usually takes us, a couple weeks to get that all formatted correctly. I'm going to stop this. I also wanted to let you know that we have a great podcast interview coming out tomorrow with a gentleman named Dr. Adam Wilson from Denver Seminary. They are doing great work around mental health supports in Christian schools and other Christian environments beyond just the church setting. So I would just really encourage you, to take a listen to that. We had a great conversation a few weeks ago. He has lots of great resources. So that's another thing you can subscribe to if you want to. We also post the transcript on the Church for Every Child blog every Thursday. So again, that podcast will be live tomorrow. The blog will be live tomorrow. We'd love for you to subscribe to the podcast too, so you don't miss any episodes. So, yeah, so that's about all I had. But I would love to hear your thoughts. We covered my presentation. I managed to get through the chat, without Beth. So yes, Julie Meekins, your hand is up.
That was a fantastic presentation. Thank you, because there were a lot of questions in my mind, and there still are, about the differences between the two different ministries. And I know that they do kind of intersect a lot, but
Yes.
at the same time, there are differences. So thank you for that. I wanted to put a plug in for the podcast as well, because I have learned so many things just listening to the podcast. And if you are a walker or a runner, it's a great thing. Put it in your ears and walk and run. I appreciate it. And some of you might like to know this. Lara Roberts was interviewed by Elena and their social media person. I say our because I love Key Ministry. And
you're an hour, Julie. It's okay.
Thank you for that. But the interview is really cool to get to know Lara a little bit. So if you don't get to come to Mental Health in the Church, and even if you do and you don't get a chance to talk with Lara, you might enjoy that particular podcast. And it was pretty recent. So just wanted to put a plug in for that. I did want to mention something that our church is just starting to do, our women's ministry is just starting to do, that I'm really appreciative of. And that is, there's a lot of stigma around women who have had abortions. And there is a great need to support them, but they are very reluctant to come and let anybody know that, because it's just such a hard thing. Plus, they're dealing with the trauma of it. And sometimes that's a 30-year journey, and more. So what they've decided to do was to have an anonymous group, and anonymous in the sense that they're not, spreading the word of where this group is unless you specifically want to join it. And then there's a contact person. They're not telling you who the contact person is in a broad spectrum. You can contact that person, and it's in someone's home. So it's not a group that's meeting in the church. So you don't have to worry about, oh no, I'm going into that room, people are going to know. And so I've just really been blessed. That's been advertised. I think it's about to start like this week or next week. It's been advertised in our women's ministry Bible studies and other ministry, women's ministry things. And I just think that that is going to open up the door for a tremendous amount of support for these women who have been dealing with this for a very long time, and some who are just fresh at it. So just wanted to mention that in case somebody else might want to pick up on something like that.
I appreciate you saying that, Julie, because it is a huge need, and it is a huge need. And I'm aware of a couple of resources that are similar to what you just described. One, and I'm not sure I'm saying this right. So don't get mad at me if I don't get it exactly right, but I think it's called Rachel's Vineyard. They've been around a long time. And it's a post-abortive support group for women. And then there's also an organization that I don't know if they have support groups, but they have a lot of resources for women who are in unplanned pregnancies. And I bet that they know of this kind of support organization that's, organizations that are out there, and it's called Her Plan, HER Plan. And then the name comes from the, women who find themselves in unplanned pregnancies. They typically have it's either like five to seven areas of support that is typical for what they need. And so they connect and provide resources. It used to just be like in a couple of states, Virginia and Georgia, but it might be beyond that now. I haven't looked at their website in a long time. So thank you for sharing that, Julie. Anybody else have any questions or have anything that you're doing at your church that has been impactful or helpful? How are you approaching mental health support needs, perhaps in a unique way, maybe similar to what Julie just mentioned?
I'm going to offer, or I have offered, I just have to follow up. I have a son with a invisible developmental disability, and he's now 21 going on 22, and it seemed like what I've learned in the process of supporting my son, it isolated us as parents, and it seemed like just showing up to make myself available for parents that want to talk, that are isolated, have a struggle with mental health. I would love supports around that and training, because I've never done anything of this nature. I can talk from a dad's perspective and just what it takes sometimes in terms of patience. But does anybody have any suggestions on? Because I don't pretend to be that it's going to be a counseling session. It's more of just,
Right.
if you need somebody to talk to.
Well,
boundaries, any of the above.
so Key Ministry collaborated with Fresh Hope for Mental Health on a curriculum for caregiving parents for their own mental health challenges. When their children have challenges, whatever those challenges are of their child, whether it's a physical disability, or a mental health challenge. And, you know, Joel, that might be something that would be good for you to investigate, either, you know, just for your own benefit, or also to consider possibly being a facilitator. Because, you know, one thing that, you know, one of my favorite things in scripture is that it says, get wisdom, get understanding. But, you know, that comes at a pretty big price. But if you are showing up for something like this today, you know, you're a person who's probably gained a fair amount of wisdom. And to your point, Joel, it can be hugely helpful just to have somebody on the other end of the phone, or in the room, or in the small group that, you know, that has been where you are or where they are. And so that can be hugely helpful. And that is a high impact, that is a very high impact ministry. And that's the kind of thing that
Fresh hope.
we're talking about. Yep. Fresh hope. I'd be happy to put you in touch with the gal who runs their small groups. And
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to get, I don't want to provide curriculum for parents, but if there's training that I can get to help support it in the process,
okay,
that would be awesome.
I'll be happy to do that.
Yeah, I don't want to make it formal. I just want it to be an evening where they can vent and talk and find other parents that might have suggestions, or
Yeah.
but I need training, so.
Right. Well, and I mean, even if you didn't want to facilitate a group, and for everybody else who's here too, you know, even if you didn't want to facilitate a group, you know, they do have good training on group management, and a lot of those principles can be used in those one-on-one kind of conversations, like, you know, with boundaries and that sort of thing. So
That would be great. I
okay.
would love that connection. Thank you.
Okay, sure. All right. Kelly.
Hi, my name is Kelly, and I actually would like to suggest also. I came in late, so I don't know if this was mentioned, but not just to put what you offer out on your website, but also make it known within the context of your church, because you might have somebody, like my experience is on the other side, where I live with hidden disabilities as well, and you know, it just would be nice, like sitting in the church, it would just be nice to know that there is something where a person that I like, you were talking about liaisons, that I could go to that person and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for, you know, as somebody already in the church.
Excellent point. Yep. Because I mean, if you go to a church like for a long time, why are you looking at their website, right? So that's an excellent point. You know, let's have it somewhere else that, you know, regular attenders who are not looking at the website are going to actually see. Anybody else? Allison.
Hello, everyone. You were speaking earlier about how these things are displayed on websites, and a great example is on saddleback.com at Saddleback Church. I get to co-lead their chronic illness and pain support group online. I do not attend the church, but I am a registered volunteer there. And their website lists all their support groups. They have groups for the individual that's living that experience, as well as groups for loved ones who are supporting them. So that might be a great example if you're looking for ways to display that on your website.
Excellent. Would you mind sharing that link in the chat? Because I'm going to try to collect all these and make sure that we get them all in the show notes for the video. Thank you. Anybody else? Well, I really appreciate everybody's time today. We do have these monthly disability ministry video roundtables on the third Wednesday of every month. On the first Monday of every month, we have our idea share. And that's an open forum where you can come, you know, ask questions, share resources, tools, success stories with, if you've had recent events or you, you've had some things that have really just been an incredible blessing to you or others that you minister to and with. So I would encourage you, if you are interested in attending either of those, please go to keyministry.org/events, and we have all of our events right there. And again, if you want to get notified when our live stream is going on for the Mental Health in the Church conference next week, go to our YouTube channel and hit subscribe so that you'll get those notifications, and they will also be posted within a couple of weeks. So for the Key Ministry team, I just appreciate every one of you for joining today. Thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you back here real soon. Take care.